When this boy got into his teacher's computer, he accidentally set off a chain of events. He didn't really understand what he saw, but it led to big consequences. After he told his parents, the teacher was quickly arrested, and things got very tense. It all started as a harmless prank. Levi and his teacher Daryl often joked around. Usually, Levi would pull a prank, they'd both laugh, and class would go on as usual. But this time, things didn't go as planned. Levi waited for the right moment to pull off his joke. After the school bell rang, Daryl and the other students left the classroom, but Levi stayed behind. His plan was simple: change the image on his teacher's computer to something funny. But things took a different turn. He sneaked to the teacher's desk and pressed enter on the keyboard, but the computer was locked. Not giving up, Levi searched the desk for clues and found a piece of paper with the password under the keyboard. He typed it in, and the computer opened. Instead of finding schoolwork or schedules, the desktop was mostly empty, except for one folder in the corner. Levi, being curious, clicked on it. Inside, he found hundreds of pictures of his teacher Daryl, with young children all smiling. It seemed strange, but Levi, only 10 years old, didn't understand what he had stumbled upon. He finished his prank and went to play with his friends, not realizing the trouble that was already set in motion. The images of the kids posing with teacher Daryl were still on his mind, and when he got home, he told his parents about it. He shared his discovery with a smile because he didn't really understand the implications, but his parents didn't share his optimism. They immediately sensed something was wrong and acted accordingly. Levi's parents quickly called the principal and went to Daryl's computer together. Even though Daryl had the day off, he was called back after they saw what was on his desktop. When Daryl arrived, he greeted everyone with a smile, but Levi's parents and the principal stood behind his computer with serious expressions. Before Daryl could ask what was happening, police officers arrived, placed him under arrest, and escorted him out. The accusations had already been made, and the whole school watched as Daryl was taken away. Levi felt heartbroken seeing his favorite teacher treated this way. But right before he was pressed inside the car, Daryl shouted something. He screamed that he was innocent, but what he said next was even more critical. As officers pressed him downward, Daryl was already in a seated position in the back seat of the police car. They were just about to close the door when Daryl shouted, "Someone call Aaron." No one listened to Daryl's plea. The word about the file on his computer had already spread, and people looked at him with anger, except for Levi. For Levi, Daryl's shout stayed with him, and it would soon matter a lot. The next day, news of Daryl's arrest spread, along with the reason behind it. When Levi arrived at school, he saw parents protesting, upset that someone like Daryl had been allowed to teach their kids. But Levi didn't feel the same. He believed in Daryl's innocence. To him, Daryl was not just a teacher but a friend, and Levi was determined to prove he wasn't guilty. That day, after classes ended, Levi stayed behind to search Daryl's desk, but the police had already taken the computer. In the last drawer, Levi found an address book, and the name Aaron came to mind. Someone Daryl had mentioned but no one had listened to. Levi decided he would contact her, hoping it could make a difference. He opened the book and searched for the name. Got it, he shouted in excitement. He picked up the class phone and called the number next to the mysterious name. A woman answered and introduced herself as Aaron Martin. She asked who was calling, and Levi told her his name before explaining the situation. "This can't be," she said, panic in her voice. Aaron was in shock after hearing the tragic news. She couldn't believe that her friend, yes, that's what she called him, was being accused of such nonsense. Levi was relieved to finally speak to someone who was on his side. Aaron added that she knew Daryl was innocent and said she could prove it. Levi was ecstatic to hear that Aaron could prove his friend's innocence. Aaron promised to come to the school as soon as possible and asked Levi to stay put. That's exactly what he did. The young boy sat beside the angry mob in the schoolyard, waiting for Aaron to arrive. It took her just over 15 minutes to get to the school. She stepped out of a gray sedan and brought someone with her, a young girl who looked to be just over 5 years old. The duo walked over to Levi and shook his hand. Aaron sighed when she saw the angry crowd. "These people don't know anything," she stated. "It's time we set our friend free. Together, we can prove his innocence today, but to do so, we must go somewhere." Aaron said they had to go to the police station, where she would make a shocking statement. "Let's go," she said. Levi got into the car with Aaron, and together, they drove to the police station. When they arrived, they were surprised to see that an angry, protesting mob had gathered there as well. A large group of parents was shouting Daryl's name, but Aaron and the two kids would soon silence them. Once they were inside the station, Aaron presented the officers with a bizarre revelation. She explained that Daryl wasn't a bad man at all, and that the accusations against him were based on ignorance. "Daryl is a good man, and he is the biological father of all 105 of those children," Aaron said. That statement was unexpected and certainly raised some eyebrows. Initially, the police didn't believe Aaron, and who could blame them? Her story sounded like something made up. But then Aaron presented her official contract, revealing Daryl as the biological donor to her 5-year-old daughter, the girl she had brought with her. His selflessness had given life to 105 children, bringing joy to countless couples who couldn't have children of their own. he had made their dreams come true. That man is a hero, Erin stated. After that revelation, Erin continued by showing the police her written contract, her email correspondence with Daryl, and the conversation she had with other parents. "And I can explain the pictures as well," she said. "It's all part of our simple agreement." The frustrated mother explained to the confused policeman that Daryl had helped all those desperate parents out of the kindness of his heart. In return, he had only requested one thing. He wanted a picture taken with each of his children, just once, as a remembrance. All the families had happily agreed to it. And that's where the desktop pictures had come from. Erin even showed the police a picture of her daughter with Daryl, which matched one on his computer, proving his innocence. The officers couldn't believe it. This absolved him of every crime placed upon their suspect. They had no choice but to let him go. However, there was a problem. Because of Leva's quick thinking and Erin's undeniable evidence, Daryl was a free man again. At least he was legally. But what that meant for him went beyond the walls of his 24-hour prison cell. His reputation as a person and teacher was tarnished, and the angry mob outside proved it. Daryl had to flee out of the station's back door, but when he got home, his termination letter was already on the doormat. The school had parted ways with him, and no one wanted to hire him. Parents still viewed him as a crook and wouldn't let him near their children. So what now? Levy and Erin stayed in close contact after their team-up. They were happy that their friend Daryl was freed from prison, but with all the commotion still surrounding Leva's old teacher, they knew their work wasn't done yet. That's when they came up with a brilliant plan together. So many people hated every little detail about Daryl that it was hard to watch. But luckily for him, there were also many people who loved him. To at least 50 parents, Daryl was the savior who had made their current lives possible, and those parents needed to be contacted. Erin went to work straight away, taking a seat behind her computer. She kept in close contact with most of the parents, and the rest were easily traceable with a few quick calls. By the end of the day, Erin had made over 100 phone calls, and things were set in motion. It didn't take long for their plan to bear fruit. Just a few days later, a news article aired on TV and online. Leva knew it was coming, so he sat by the TV, watching it like a hawk until the article popped up. "Mom, Dad, come watch this." Leva shouted for his parents to join him. It was still early in the morning when the news article aired, and the shout from their son in the living room drew both half-asleep parents into the room. But when they saw what was on the TV, they woke up instantly. The article showed over 300 people surrounding Leva's teacher in front of the State Hall. They had all come together to address the public. By doing so, they wanted to clear Daryl's name and remove the stain of bad press from his reputation. Daryl was presented as the most generous man, and these parents and their children wanted the world to know it. They told their stories and thanked Daryl for everything he had done for them, portraying him as a hero. Daryl himself stood in the middle, quiet and humble. He had already had enough attention over the past few days and just wanted to recapture some normalcy in his life, but that could only happen with the help of these parents. They took the microphone one by one, thanking Daryl for their children. Leva's parents watched in awe as the news story continued, and with every word the grateful adoptive parents spoke, Leva's point about his teacher became clearer. The young boy then took over and told the crowd that his parents had judged Daryl too quickly, and he hoped this would change their minds. Leva's parents looked at their son and asked if he was responsible for all this media attention. Levy nodded. Leva's parents always knew he loved his teacher Daryl, but they never expected the events that unfolded. As they watched the story play out, they finally understood everything. The press conference that aired soon became the top news of the week, not just locally but nationwide, clearing Daryl's name and restoring his reputation. Levy was thrilled that his efforts had freed Daryl from any blame, just as he had believed all along. The next day, as Levy walked into class, he was nervous, but when he heard a familiar voice, he looked up and saw Daryl, who had been rehired. Overjoyed, Leva ran to him and they hugged. Daryl thanked Leva for clearing his name and promised they would always be friends. True to his word, Daryl remained close to Levy, even speaking at his graduation years later. Daryl had since moved on from his previous life as a donor, now focusing on his own family, bringing his story to a happy and full circle.